Welcome, Aquarius, to your Jupiter in Cancer. No more blockages. Deep dive video. When Jupiter moved into Cancer on the 9th of June 2025, many trumpeted it as a really fortuitous year ahead because of Jupiter's exaltation in Cancer. I cautioned at the time, I didn't think that would play out in quite the way people thought. Fast forwards, many people have left comments on my YouTube channel expressing frustration about Jupiter's journey through Cancer. I'm going to share with you on screen why that wasn't quite plain sailing, looking at the event chart when Jupiter first arrived, but also why the rest of June can be so much more positive. By the end of the video, you'll have a clear picture of what's upcoming in terms of your energy, work, relationships, or finances. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. A very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now to help it to continue to thrive. But please also click or tap the bell notification symbol. So on the screen now, Aquarius, is when Jupiter arrived. Jupiter is known as being the planet of fortune, which of course it is. It's the greater benefit. But I think its archetype for a lot of people is very much to do with its rulership of Sagittarius, which is very bold, optimistic, expansive, and of course, fortunate. But Jupiter also rules traditionally the sign of Pisces, which, like Cancer, is a water feeling sign. And in Cancer, Jupiter may be exalted, but where it's really pushing us is to develop faith around the practicalities in our situation. The sixth house can be about work for Aquarius people, it can be about life organization, it can be about our physical vitality. But if you haven't had the best of luck with your health over the last year, look at me. I could hardly walk for 6 months because of the RA coming on so badly, because Saturn, the planet of limitation and the traditional ruler of Aquarius, squared off with Jupiter when Jupiter arrived. If you recall, the exact square was on the 15th of June, and literally that's when my flare up really began. And it took to around about December to really get it under control. So, Saturn is very much to do with structure, being very disciplined, can be to do with wisdom, but it is the planet of outcomes and consequences. In the sign of Aries, which is the body, it's very much in its fall, and it doesn't quite work there. So the enthusiasm we can try to get going is challenged by the limitation of Saturn, and Saturn square to Jupiter in the sixth house of health suggests that some mobility issues may have come in, and that was me. I truly, truly was struggling to walk. Also, with Neptune in a conjunction with Saturn at that time, that for us all has seen certain challenges around our physical vitality. But the third house is the nervous system. So, linking back Neptune to Jupiter creates unreality, perhaps unrealistic expectations. Saturn in a square to Mercury, which greeted Jupiter, very much to do with brittle situations. Uh, exactly the kind of flair that I personally have. But of course, I'm not the archetype for everyone who's an Aquarius. That was just me. What may have played out for many Aquarius people over the last year is tension headaches, migraines, aches and pains, or just feeling irritated by the demands of everyday life, because the sixth house is about virtue. Jupiter obviously wants to take on challenges, make things better, be very enthusiastic. Mercury, excellent if you've been operating a home-based business, Cancer the home, helping with the details in the sixth house. But hold on, Neptune's in a square with Mercury, and that's dissolving the precision. Saturn in the square with Mercury, that's creating lots of irritation. So it may be that through persistence, learning about, and obviously Jupiter is about knowledge, new ways of approaching health, whether it's changes to diet, whether it's technology that we're bringing in to help with health, all of the things that we can work on, there may have been progress, but I just think that progress was much slower and much more inhibited than ideal. The other thing about the sixth house is work. So if you have been trying your best to be super upbeat, very dynamic and positive about your brilliant ideas, which Aquarius people often have, you may have been met with just cold, restrictive, disinterested, bad communication. So the bubble of enthusiasm that Jupiter can create was undoubtedly limited, slowed down. So it's felt like driving with the handbrake on. But Mars in the proud sign of Leo was in the seventh house. It doesn't mean to say you caved in. You would have kept going. But Mars was in a square with Uranus in the fourth house of home and emotion. So, as much as you may have kept up the good fight, it may have created quite a lot of exhaustion trying to keep going and develop the ideas that are important to you, particularly if you're dealing with unpredictable people professionally or even in your home situation as well. Maybe a relationship's been a little bit bumpy. The sixth house can also be about sacrifice. And maybe is that you have been doing something more to help others. And the other part of the sixth house can be pets. Guess what? I got a dog. Got a dog nearly 2 years ago after a lifetime of being a cat man. Absolutely loved the dog Esme. So the sixth house definitely has blessings, but what we also had was Venus, the planet, the lesser benefit, and the ruler of the sign of Taurus was at home, domiciled, great for money, but in a square with Pluto. Pluto in the first house is transforming a lot of early born Aquarius people. But that created some politics, I feel, around home and emotional life. So even if you try to get things a bit tidier, a bit more organized, a bit more streamlined, pardon me, all Jupiter, Mercury in the sixth house, again, there may have been some inhibitions. The moon, however, in the free spirited Sagittarius, the 11th house, your desire to do things that really get in touch with your higher purpose in an opposition with Uranus in the fourth house. So a lot of energy at the bottom of your chart was really quite testing to the apparent upbeat energy of Jupiter exalted in Cancer. Now, if we come forwards to the 9th of June 2026, some will be describing this as the luckiest day of the year. Okay, Jupiter and Venus are the two benefics. I get that. It's a fair thing to say to a degree, but the sign of Cancer is not so much about an external very positive or dynamic, fiery, passionate energy. It is about that nurture. But if, like with me, you have grappled with some health issues and improved them, you can definitely celebrate that now. Or if things are getting a bit more streamlined in terms of life organization, or a job is coming up for you that you're really excited about, because the conjunction between these two is really, really lovely. But Mercury, the planet of communication, like it was at the start of the journey, is squared by Saturn. So don't promise more than you can realistically deliver because Jupiter does have a tendency to do that. Pluto, which was in that challenging right angle to Venus, in a lovely link to your modern ruler. So I think things are picking up speed. You are feeling more outgoing, more bubbly. There's more positivity coming through, but there is the need to be aware of sensitive communication with the moon on Neptune. So Tuesday, the 9th of June 2026 can definitely be better when Jupiter first arrived. Will it be a panacea? Not completely. But that takes us to the 28th of June. And we have Mercury, which started the journey in a conjunction with Jupiter, very close to Jupiter, but they're blessed by the go-getting energy of Mars, coming to the end of its journey in Taurus after 6 weeks on the analytic degree in a very energized link to Jupiter. So it's possible that if you've been waiting to get a bit more organized, get things working on the health front, get that job that's really important to you, all the energy is building up in a much more constructive way. Venus in the seventh house of relating, one of her favorite locations, but in the proud Leo, linking back to the moon, all three charts in Sagittarius. Honestly, you couldn't make it up. Linking back to Saturn, your traditional ruler. So now your words, rather than creating strains or limitations or uh, or your energy being inhibited by Saturn, is linking fabulously well to the position of the moon and also to Venus. So the chances are that something's coming up to the board at the end of June, which is phenomenally positive. The only thing I can tell you is that the Sun is in a square with Neptune still, so it's still important to try to be clear about the details for sure. And Mars then moves into Gemini later on the 28th and merges with Uranus through the last few days of the month. And then as Jupiter moves into Leo on the 30th, Mars and Jupiter are in a sextile. So as we go into that new period of Jupiter in a new home, much more dynamic, super energized, so much better than last year, but particularly for Aquarius people and particularly for romance and connecting to others in a dynamic way. I'm going to summarize those four areas of energy, work, relationships, and finances next. But just to say, I've slashed the price of my personal horoscope reports. For many years, it was buy two, get 30% off. Now it's buy one and get three. Three for the price of one. The one you pay for is your life roadmap report, which helps us to understand the patterns that play out in our lives, get a more intimate understanding of those energies and how to work them better future forwards. Free, your 12 months transit forecast, but also your draconic soul karmic analysis, which helps us to look at life, astrology, and ourselves in a profound but very different way. Please see the link below for more. If you've yet to watch your June monthly forecast, Aquarius, that's on the screen. If you've yet to watch your Chiron in Taurus 50-year return video on the screen. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, it'd be an absolute pleasure. Please see my testimonials below. If you've yet to sign up for my free daily written horoscope, fire to your device each morning for your early day celestial pit stop, you can do so below too as well. So to summarize, energy. Well, Jupiter in the sixth house should give us an excess of energy. And if you have been lucky enough to feel your energy has been on the up over the last year, that is absolutely fabulous. But because if we go back to that event chart at the beginning of the story, if Saturn and Neptune in Aries together, affecting everyone's uh, perceptions, our body is very much to do with the sign of Aries, the first zodiac sign. But for you, the third house can be the nervous system. And that can lead to things like headaches and stress and just, peripheral tension. And the link between these guys to Jupiter and Mercury suggests that as much as we may have hoped for that uplift of energy, it didn't actually ensue in the way we hoped. Also, as far as the energy of Mars in that square to Uranus, you may have encountered throughout the time of Jupiter in the sign of Cancer some chaotic stuff around your love life or around your home situation. Also, with Pluto in that square to Venus, that too may have created some deep politics, perhaps with a family relationship situation. And the moon at the start of the journey was in a very restless opposition with your modern ruler, Uranus. And then, in terms of work over time, if you've really been persistent and kept going, I think you can get your reward by the end of this month. So that's really pleasing. What about relationships? Well, of course, at the start of the process, there was that potential for real unpredictability. At the end of the process, Venus is in that seventh house. Some very good news can develop by the end of this month. Even if you don't meet someone, if you're single and you'd like to, There may be something you hear from someone that reinforces your sense of identity and your specialness. If you are in a relationship which is, on the whole, going well, the level of cooperation and support you can give each other, but particularly domestically, will help that time more than anything else. If you have gone through a breakthrough over the last year, I will really reassure you, with Mars roaring into the sign of Gemini and Jupiter into Leo, that gives you an awesome opportunity to meet some very exciting people over the next 12 months. What about money, the loot? Well, let's just think about the loot for us Aquarius folk. So, if we go back to the beginning of the journey, the North Node, of course, in the second house of everyday money. Jupiter and Mercury can be lucky. I think if money is coming to you at the end of June, it's because you've really rolled up your sleeves and you're working for it. Of course, we can get random strokes of good fortune, and that is very much what Jupiter is about. But I think really it's mainly because of your efforts that you're going to get some reward by the end of this month. But you could. It may not be quite as substantial as you would like, but I think if you can develop a greater sense of your self-worth and worthiness, you're going to attract so many amazing things over the next 12 months. It's been a pleasure being with you. All the best, and look forward to seeing you again soon.